Hey, everybody, and welcome to another segment of AstrologyAnswers.com's weekly forecast. My name is Terence. The week begins on Monday, November the 6th, with the moon void of course. Actually, if you're on the west coast of the United States, it begins Sunday night at 11:25 p.m. So for most of the world, it's going into early Monday morning, and it lasts until 11:39 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. The moon void, of course, as I mention every week, the moon changes signs every 2.5 days, but during the process of changing signs, if it's no longer making aspects to other planets, it's called the void of course period, when there's no activity. So if you start a new project, a new job, launching a new website, and the moon is void of course, the energy is flat and unproductive. Now, at 11:39 a.m. Pacific time, the moon leaves the void of course, which was in Leo, and goes into sensible, work-oriented Virgo. But for the first hour or two after 11:39 a.m. Pacific time, the moon will be at 0 degrees of Virgo, in exact opposition or confrontation to restricted controlling Saturn at 0 degrees of Pisces. It only lasts for an hour or two, but you're not going to get your emotional needs met personally. And Virgo is very work-oriented. Saturn is very business-oriented. This would also not be very favorable for starting any important business projects or making some business commitments, especially for the first half of the day with the moon void, of course. And then when the moon goes into Virgo, opposite Saturn. But afterwards, there's some very favorable energies. Venus, creative Venus, relational Venus, will be in harmony pretty much the first half of the day with Pluto. Pluto gives this power and this intensity to really experience more deeper emotional, intimate connections, can be very favorable creatively. Then the last half of the day, Mercury, discerning communication Mercury, will be in harmony with inspiring, idealistic Neptune. Mercury to Neptune can also trigger a lot of intuitive energy, spiritual energies, can be very good for inspiring others, whether you are writing, singing, having, giving a talk, a lecture. Now, on Tuesday, the 7th, the moon is in Virgo for the day. There aren't any other major planetary events, but the moon, sensible, practical moon in Virgo, will be in harmony with expansive Jupiter from about 7:30 a.m. till about 9 a.m. approximately Pacific Standard Time. So the moon, remember, represents the general emotional tone and reactions of the public. And when it's in harmony with Jupiter, there's more of this sense of optimism and all things Jupiter, of education, of publishing, learning, traveling, will flow more easily. Good time to be making long-range plans. That's the Jupiter. Wednesday, on the 8th, the moon continues in sensible Virgo for the day. In the early morning, 6-8 a.m. Pacific time, the moon will be in harmony with progressive futuristic Uranus. But Uranus also rules innovation, technology, and in the public would be less resistant, more open to new ideas, progressive ideas, to technology. It's really favorable for getting out of your comfort zone and wanting to take a chance, shake things up, move in new directions. By late afternoon, 4 or 5 p.m. Pacific time, the moon will now be opposite Neptune. Opposite is when you're interacting with others. With the Neptune, there might be some misunderstanding, some confusion. There could be some inspiring energies, but it's all kind of cloudy and unsure. So around that 4 or 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, it's best to just pull back, maybe be more introspective, but don't make any important decisions because things are not what they appear to be with Neptune, but it's only for an hour or two. But for most of the day, communication, decision-making, Mercury will be in harmony with Pluto. Pluto rules the underworld. And so Mercury is what we're curious about, what we're interested in. So this is a really good day to be studying, learning about all things Plutonian, psychology, astrology, the occult. This is a really great time for research and investigation, as the mind, Mercury, is very favorably exploring the underworld. Thursday, now the moon, as we start the day, will be in diplomatic, fair-minded, relational Libra. And there's no other planetary events with the moon or any other outer planets. So it's a more relaxed, calm day. And with Libra, maybe more sociable, more cooperations with others, more kindness. On Friday, the moon continues in Libra, fair-minded Libra, but discerning communication Mercury will be squaring, forming a 90-degree angle of internal tension with Saturn, with restricted Saturn. Mercury in hard angle to Saturn can hurt, block, frustrate communications. Would not be a favorable time to be, for the whole day, to be making really important commitments and decisions, because whatever you are assuming and communicating, it's getting blocked somehow. Often Mercury to Saturn is a day of endings with agreements or a lot of worrying. So Friday, you need to just take a break and don't be getting involved with important business matters. On Saturday, the moon continuing in fair-minded Libra will go void of course from 7:06 a.m. to 10:40 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's just 3 hours, 3.5 hours, but it's a time to just stick to the routine, don't introduce anything important new. But at 10:40 a.m. Pacific Time, the moon leaves Libra and goes into Scorpio for those next 2.5 days. Scorpio can be more private, more introspective. With that Scorpio, more intensity and passions with your feelings. But when the moon goes to 0 degrees of Scorpio, it's going to be in harmony with pragmatic Saturn at 0 degrees of Pisces, because Scorpio and Pisces are both water signs and therefore very compatible. So that's that first 2 hours, certainly the first hour after 10:40 a.m., really good for business. Now, Mars, ambitious, assertive, risk-taking Mars, will be in opposition to liberating, unpredictable Uranus. That Mars-Uranus can trigger a lot of rash, sudden tensions, decisions. You wouldn't want to do anything during the moon void, of course, for that 3.5 hours. But when the moon goes into Scorpio, actually excellent with practical, sensible Saturn, this might be from 10:40 a.m. Pacific time for an hour or two. that could be a nice window when you're really using your common sense and attracting some sudden, exciting, unexpected opportunities. The Mars-Uranus sometimes can be too rash and anxious, but when the moon goes into Scorpio, excellent with Saturn, you're slowing it down and taking control. So there could be some real benefits of what is being offered to you out of the blue. And on Sunday, the moon continues in Scorpio. There's no other planetary events with the moon or other planets. With the moon in Scorpio, there's usually a tendency with the public to be more introspective, to be more private, keep a lot of things to yourself. But it is favorable of wanting to really explore the underworld, psychology, astrology, counseling. I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next week with my next segment. Until then, be safe and well.